Been a bit of a delay with the gearbox on the end there. They're going to send me another one. It's gone in the post today. But before I sent the old one back, I did put it on and establish the height of the output bore from that gearbox. With all the measuring up and everything else, established that I needed feet of a certain size to get that output centre 100 millimeters from the base. So that transfers into these brackets. These are going to be kind of outrigger brackets that are going to carry the same output shaft from the gearbox. And the point of establishing that 100 millimeter dimension with these feet is that these brackets have got to be 100 millimeters from their base to the centre of that bore. So I can make a start on these now while I'm waiting for the new gearbox to arrive. Get some references on it and then probably cut it in half fairly soon. If I do cut it in half, well, before I do, I would like to face off that side, and then when they're in two pieces I can put them together, bolt them together, and then machine the two pieces both as one, get them both the same. See how that works out. Clamp down. This boss here is the lowest one, so if I clean this one off first, and then I'll step over one at a time to do the other bosses, moving the clamps about as well. Okay, so those bosses are flat. Turn it over, mount these on blocks and then take the other side off. That should be flat now and parallel to that side. Now that the two supports are separated, I've got these clamped back together again, and they're clamped together so that that back straight edge aligns with both of them, and this boss and the lower boss align with each other as well. these need to be finishing off. One is longer than the other, but generally the lower tangent of these two bosses is the same. Then get a pin or upside down end mill and just visually align that diameter there to that cast boss, and then when a hole gets drilled through that boss, it will be in the centre of that cast feature. There are dimensions to put that hole, but it's only a cross bolt to hold the two brackets at a determined distance, so there's no need for any dimensions as to where that hole needs to go, but putting it in the centre of the cast boss will look the better of the two options. Made a mark on me clamp. Bad dog. Now that's not fully cleaned up, but there's no need to take any more off of that than necessary. It's just a reference right angle here. I am going to drill the screw holes in the bottom of this base now though. The drawing calls for them to be through holes. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do what I've done on the other pieces and drill blind holes and then tap them to M6. Then I can put the fasteners in from underneath. There'll be no holes on the top. There'll be no need to spot face anything. Only 10mm deep these holes, and I don't want to break out on the bottom. So this is going to be a matter of getting the tap started, then immediately backing it out, just so that I can get the threads started, and I'll finish them off by hand with a plug tap. If you ever break a tap or break some teeth off it or something like that, don't throw it away. Just grind the end off flat with a tiny chamfer, and you can make a plug tap for getting down to the bottom of very shallow holes. This will probably only put one thread on the bottom of it, but better than nothing. Or maybe more, maybe two. Got to do this by hand because it's very easy to poke a hole through the back here. It's quite thin, it's only about 1/2 millimetre thick. But there, that's a 10mm deep hole with a thread pretty much all the way to the bottom. So that when it mounts on the base plate, that way, it will mount like that. Screws will go in from underneath, and you won't see any fasteners on the top of it. All that will be painted, be nice and clean. It's what I prefer to do, other than drill holes all the way through and then have nuts and bolts holding it all together. Just looks cleaner. New gearbox arrived. The other one was needed to be sent back, and they sent another one through. Now that shaft is the shaft turned down to 11mm, 11mm bore in this gearbox. So this will be the drive shaft. It isn't finished yet, there's a keyway and length to deal with, but while that shaft is complete, This gearbox is mounted to the motor. The motor is mounted on its feet on the chopping board, which is flat enough. Two gauge block stacks of 94.5 millimeters. That allows me to set the gearbox on its cap screws and slots to be square and horizontal with the feet of the motor. So now that that's tightened up, I really don't want to be taking that off again. There won't be any need to. But what it also confirms is that the bottom of this shaft is 94.5 millimeters from the base, which is the base of the feet. 11 millimeter shaft, that means that the center of this shaft is 100 millimeters from the base. Now, I need to know that because when I make these outrigger bearings, the center of that bore needs to be 100 millimeters from the base. I'll do that by boring it first to get it in the center of that boss, and then taking off material from the bottom of these feet to bring it down to the 100 millimeter height. That way, when that shaft runs through this gearbox and through the bearings that go into these supports, it will all be in line as it needs to be anyway. Thought I'd never use these when I bought them. Using them more and more. Get some. Should read something like 98, sorry, 102. Yeah, it's centre enough. It's about half a millimetre to the edges of the casting out. Oops. Collet nut hit the clamp. Bad dog. .05, yeah, a little bit high, but these are pretty much complete. I'm going to drill through a hole there, eventually make bronze bushes to go in the top there. They do seem to line up with the motor shaft, but these closely interact with this piece here and a couple of plates, yeah, call them plates, a couple of plates that go on either side of this, so they're going to, upside down of course, approximately go about there. So the dimensions on this are not really very critical. I just need to get the width correct on these two faces. To make a start on that, I need some reference surfaces. The top of the part is fairly flat, but I've clamped it down upside down on some cardboard that'll hold it. Dust this off. The dimension isn't critical at all, it just hangs in space, but that will be a reference surface to be able to clamp it up on angle blocks and whatnot to be able to machine these sides. Yeah, that'll do. Taken off a clean cut on both sides. Two square faces now. Rather embarrassing with the carpenter's clamps though. Once again, a lot of this is all about trying to get things to line up with the casting more than anything else. So, adjustable parallel. Yep, that ought to do. Two more of them, other side. Bit of a recap of where we are with this. These outriggers are made, pretty much finished, except that they require kind of a spacer bolt to go between the two bosses down the bottom to space those out. Can't really make that because that will govern the spacing on the top of the bearings here. The spacing on the top of the bearings depends on these plates, which are going to go over there when they're done, and those plates are going to bolt to that piece at the top. So this really had to be made first so that this distance here can be established. That distance will be the same distance there that these outriggers are going to be spaced at. There's always a chance the casting won't fit, or I'll mess something up or whatever, so there's no point making that bolt until I've got this dimension established.